Hello drawing students, Emily here. I wanted to do a short lecture for you on using citing with the figure. This should hopefully be a review for you, but I didn't want to waste any of our time on Wednesday going over this, so I wanted to pre-record this for you. So here we go. And citing. What is citing? It is the use of a citing tool, an artist's use of a citing tool, or a 10-inch to 12-inch skinny dowel, by an artist to translate a three-dimensional reality onto a two-dimensional surface. And specifically, and I'm sure you've used these in your other classes before, barbecue skewers work really well. You can buy them in a 100-pack at a dollar store. Normally I hand them out in class, and I will if you don't have any. I have plenty for us. More serious barbecue skewer, and I'm realizing you can't really see me, but more serious barbecue skewer. And then the other thing I've used before, in a pinch, cut the middle of a coat hanger out, of a metal coat hanger. So, why citing? When drawing from observation, the three-dimensional thing that you are looking at occupies space up and down and side to side. So if you think of geometry, x-axis and the y-axis, and backwards, the z-axis there, and forwards. So and backwards and forwards. So that's three-dimensionality. Your drawing does not take up this third dimension. It is important to recognize the need for this translation. You are translating the three-dimensional into the two-dimensional. Okay, this goes over the specifics on the steps of how to cite. Should be a review for you, and I'm going to do a demo on this on Wednesday. This is a lecture I would have given before the demo. So first step is you hold your dowel in your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed and I hold it in my left. And then 2, you extend your arm towards the object or objects, and in this case the figure you wish to draw, and lock your elbow to ensure a constant scale. So you're going to lock your elbow every time, and you're going to hold it differently depending on if you're taking one type of citing as opposed to another. We'll go over that in a second. You hold the stick firmly between your finger and thumb, keeping the stick parallel to your face at all times. So if I'm citing something up here, I'm going to hold it parallel to my face like this. If I'm citing something down here, I'm going to hold it parallel to my face. Again, extending my arm fully, but it's always parallel to my face. Okay. You're going to squint one eye shut, always the same eye if you can, and take either a measurement, an angle, or a horizontal vertical landmark. Little tip is that I always squint my dominant eye, so I just keep this in mind. I'm using this eye and I'm using this arm. So this is the process that I do. Without changing the angle of the citing stick, if you're taking an angle measurement, bring the measurement down to your paper and trace the intended line. Again, only if you're using an angle measurement. The two-dimensional space that your citing stick takes up represents your picture plane. Imagine a clear piece of glass that levitates between you and the three-dimensional thing you wish to draw. So you are doing this translation between the three-dimensional thing and the two-dimensional. All right. Applications of citing, pop quiz. The 3 applications of citing are relative proportions, angles and axis lines, and horizontal and vertical landmarks, or vertical and horizontal alignments. So first, relative proportions. Again, this should be a review for you. If you were citing objects, right, in a still life, you would choose one object that you can see the entirety of it. You can see both the height and the width of it in a multiple object still life, and you would use that object to measure the rest of the still life. So I think this is a light bulb. And so we're measuring that the height of this bulb is 1, 2, 3, 4. The still life is a little over 4 heights of that bulb. You could, if you wanted, cite the height compared to the width of this light bulb. And that is something you would do with a figure when you first start. Good unit of measurement for the figure. So for the still life, a good unit of measure is an object that you can see the entirety of. It's usually a smaller object or a medium-sized object. A good unit of measure for the figure is the head. And we know that the figure is about 7 head width, or head heights. The figure is about 7 head heights. So we have the height of the head here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down to the feet. And for a sitting figure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So that is a unit of measure that is pretty universal, that the figure is 7 head heights. Depending on the width of the figure, you could use that unit of measure. You can always use that unit of measure of the head to help measure the width of the figure as well. So in this case, the width of this figure with the elbow is the same as the height of the head. Here again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heads to get the whole height of the figure. And oops. Okay. There's a couple of slides in there that were repeated. So angles and axis lines. So then we can take our sighting stick and we can sight angles and axis lines. Remember, an axis line is a line that goes to the core of the center of a form. We went over that with gestures, and going to always remember that. But you're also going to use your sighting stick to sight angles as well. So angles between things, angles around things, exterior and interior angles of the figure. Axis lines, this is an example of axis lines throughout the figure. So axis lines through the arm, through the legs, the torso, and such. Angles and axis lines throughout the entire figure. I'm not going to go over that slide. And then this is an example of vertical and horizontal points of alignment. So if we were in class, I would make you take your sighting stick, and you can at home, and just kind of sight all the way up and down horizontally and vertically and see what things line up with each other. And that is a good way to check your drawing, but also it's really good, just a part of your preliminary proportions. Make sure that things are really in a line. That really checks you and makes sure. You can have cited a ton. You could have cited all the axis lines, all the angles, all the proportions, and then you go around and do those horizontal and vertical landmarks, and a ton of stuff is out of whack still. And this really, really makes sure you have it right. So here we have like the top of the shoe and the top of the light bulb line up with each other horizontally. The edges of things, pretty self-explanatory here. And then with this figure, I would have paused this and have you scan go ahead, pause the video and scan your sighting stick vertically over, see what things line up with each other, and horizontally as well. Well, we only have a vertical slide, but we can see how this crevice and this crevice line up with each other vertically. Now in your drawing, you might have had this all the way over here, and now you know you have to move it over here. Stuff like that. This and this line up. These line up as well. And this is a good way when you sight it on the figure, you come back to your drawing, you make sure, and if it's out of alignment, that means that you are moving something to fix it, and hopefully you did not draw things too darkly, so you can move it around. And here are a few things that are lining up with each other here. The edge of the chair and this crevice right here, this crease right here, can get pretty detailed with at the edge of the face, down to this intersection, the edge of the hand down to the edge of the drapery down here. And these are some examples of students actually using that in their drawings, which is what you're going to do. And if you're doing digital, you can use different colors for the layers for your sighting. And your what we're going to go over next is straight line construction and the envelope. Next, as in I mean right now. You can use a different layer with a different color to use that's really helpful for drawing with hard medium. I would suggest using lighter pencils, lighter medium to do that sighting. We want to leave the straight line construction, the sighting lines, we want to leave those in the drawing though, for the purposes of this part of our assignments. And so some more, this is a really strange smile on this figure, but okay. And so you can see where this artist has spent a lot of time really sighting all these angles and access lines, and then eventually they used that to help build the drawing on top of that. And this starts to get into the envelope, which we will go over in a second. These lines right here. And some more examples here. Okay, the figure envelope. The figure envelope is, if you have not heard of that term before, it is the use of straight tangent lines around the outermost exterior points of the figure. And then that creates a straight line envelope around the figure. And this helps to draw the figure general to specific. I'm sure you've heard that before, and I'm saying it a lot, and I will say it a lot. We're going to work general to specific, and with this figure envelope definitely helps you do that. So here's an example of that and straight line construction. So we're going to use the figure envelope. Whoa, what just happened? Let's go back. The figure envelope first, and then we're going to move to straight line construction. So we're going to move inward to the figure. So you're going to use the sighting first. You're going to use the relative proportions, the axis lines, and the horizontal and vertical landmarks. But in that, specifically within the angles and axis lines, you're going to draw the envelope of the figure. So again, the envelope is the use of straight tangent lines around the most exterior points of the outermost points of the figure. So you would take your sighting stick and sight these angles all the way around the most outermost points of the figure to help plan out the figure. This would be a pretty early thing to do, not the very first thing to do. Very first thing to do would be to sight axis lines in the figure, but then to start working general to specific, we're going to start doing this pretty early. Again, the outermost points of the figure, and these are straight lines. And then you start to work more specific. Straight line construction is the use of straight tangent lines to describe or build curvilinear lines, specifically for organic forms, and very useful for the figure. So you would then go around and line up your sighting stick with the exterior points of the figure and come back and trace all of these. So you're continuously sighting it, tracing it, sighting it, tracing it, over and over and over again. This is, and what that other slide was that I skipped before, it's about thinking about the angles on a clock, and that kind of helps you to reinforce the idea that this is straight, and that it's straight as in parallel to your face. So, for instance, when you go and try and sight, let's say you're trying to sight this angle right here, and the figure is sitting there and the knee is coming out at you and it's foreshortened. Well, your instinct is to go like this and sight that angle and then try and bring it down to your paper. Well, as you know, that's going to change the angle, and then it's not going to work. So you're going to get really frustrated. You're going to be like, why is this not working? It's because you haven't remembered to keep this flat and parallel to your face. And every angle is made up of something, as if you can think of it on a clock, every angle exists like this. So yes, you can get that angle and keep it parallel to your face. It's just shorter. Some more examples of that. And then, as you can see, there's a big difference between this and then this, right? You start to work more and more specific, and you get more into the interior of the figure, So before we were working on the exterior, then you start to work on the interior contours and use that straight line construction to build that. And the reason for that is because if you just went in and you saw a curved line on the figure, say the breast of the figure, and you just started, like in a gesture, you just kind of assume what that is, very likely you're not going to get it right. But this straight line construction really helps you build it and get it more precise. You can also use it for the drapery as well. And then you can use it to actually describe value shapes as well when we get there. And then here are some student examples. Some really nice examples of this. I'd say this is getting a little Picasso-y, but that's okay. And over here's a really nice one where we are starting to describe the curves of the form using the straight line construction. And a couple more examples of that. And so, actually I only have one more example of that, but so that is what we will be doing in class after we're doing gestures on Wednesday, is specifically sighting, and then we're going to focus on the envelope of the figure and then straight line construction. So working general to specific with the straight line construction. All right, guys. And so, yeah. All right. It has been a pleasure speaking with you this evening. And let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you on Wednesday.